Dude, okay, let's get on that, dude. I freaking believe that one could be game of the year. I feel like it's gonna be a toss up between that and Final
Wait, here,
Fantasy.
okay, let's see what's nominated
Okay,
for
okay.
game of the year.
All right, first one I got on my list is
You have the list?
yeah, I got
Yeah, he's
Okay,
got
yeah. Name it out to us.
first
Name
one
it
I got
out
on my list.
This is for the main category, right?
This is the
Yeah,
main
main
category.
category.
Game
Main
of the
game of the
year.
year.
In no
category.
particular order.
Actually, no, I have a particular order.
You have it from least to best?
I have it from
Or-
least to best based on the Metacritic score.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
I feel like that's
That
pretty
don't
fair.
really
So
matter.
we'll start at the very bottom, which is Black Myth Wukong. Obviously, when this game came out, there was a lot of public reception about it. A lot of people liked it. There was some pushback just because it was a Chinese developer. I don't think that makes any sense to me to get pushback.
Apparently, there was a lot of
Well, like people were.
horrible sexism and workplace abuse going on there too.
Oh,
which
well.
Oh, it's because of that. Okay,
Yeah.
I was like, were they
Like,
just
there were
mad
people who
because
just
they were
wouldn't play it.
Chinese?
That's what I thought too. So its Metascore is a generally favorable review at 81, with a user score being 8.3. So this is towards the bottom of the list, but people say on the good end, people say that it has fluid combat mechanics that in a way can resemble a Souls game.
Yeah. Let's just be straight up. It's a Souls game, right? Like it's.
I
haven't
have
played
a
it.
friend.
I haven't played
I
it.
have a friend who's got hours and hours and hours in it. That's what he says.
That's what he says.
It's another
He,
Souls
he,
game.
he
All right,
said
so when we're
that they tried to advertise it where this is not a Souls game. This is a new type of game. And Patrick is like, I'm just rolling. He's like, it is a fucking Souls
Okay,
It's
game.
got the same health mechanics. too.
so let's just. I feel like we can just go ahead and knock this one out. Do we see Black Myth Wukong, a Souls game, a not that popular Souls game? I'm not saying it's bad, but just not
It
that
sold a
acclaimed.
ridiculous amount of
Well, yeah,
copies.
okay, maybe not popular, but acclaimed. You know, like I feel like we don't
Yeah.
still hear people like raving about it the same way with Elden Ring.
I
In the
can
same
s-
in the same category that we have the Elden Ring DLC. Do we see it? Do we see it beating it?
I can say no, and I'll tell you why.
You said that it could or couldn't beat it.
No, it's not gonna win.
It's not
and
gonna
it's
win.
not gonna
I
win
agree.
because the voters like us who vote, that's 10%. There's a coalition of developers. There's a coalition of critics. There's a coalition of everything from the video game industry. They basically make the decisions. They come in and pull votes. It's just like the Oscars. You have to do a certain amount in that industry to be qualified. And I don't think it's going to win simply because of the workplace allegations. Because these are all people who've worked in the industry, and I don't think they're going to vote for it.
I feel
So there's like actual controversy around it. I never heard about
Yeah.
it, so I didn't know that.
Well,
didn't
that's
know
all
that
I
they
heard
were-
about it when I was on TikTok.
But
I mean, that
I heard about it for like a few weeks after it came out, and
I
then
don't,
never heard
I don't
anything
know if
about
that
it
would
again.
stop me from. I wish I could say that would be enough to stop me from playing a game, but we still listen to Michael Jackson. So
That's true, but I feel like another thing is that again, because this is a Chinese studio, and I think there's a bias that happens because obviously, let me see, what's the studio called?
I can see what you're saying
Science.
because I feel like Japanese studios have kind of been at the forefront of everything, and now here's this. Oh, we're from.
So who developed the game? Like,
Game
who-
Science.
Game Science. So
What
let's
else
see,
have
what
they
other
done?
games have they?
Is this their first published title?
It says that they've been a thing since 2014.
I mean, I could see them working on a game like this.
So
for this
they've
long,
also released in 2016 Art of War Red Tides. I have no idea what this game is. It
Never
looks like
heard of
a tactical RTS
Ew.
game.
but
So they've only had
disgusting.
2 releases. They don't have a history. I feel like it probably...
But I don't think that would necessarily invalidate them, because like I feel like people love that underdog story. But if I don't know anything about the controversy, but if there is like controversy as far as like a bunch of workplace stuff, then that may shift people's
that's
opinions.
the
when
reason-
you think about like an actual like critical acclamation, like I think that may.
You know, Quantic Dream.
Mm.
That they made like Detroit, Become Human,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all
yeah,
this.
yeah.
They've had like serious shit going on with workplace, like abuse, harassment, straight
Then
straight
again,
up stuff.
I feel like Blizzard has that like every year.
Well, dude,
Those
I
are
remember
still-
when
and
I
then they
was
released a Diablo.
I was in
Yeah.
crisis communications for my degree when that happened, and we had to find like an issue that was going on, and I did like a 10-minute video essay on that. And I had to, because the lawsuit that was published for that, they published it online. The whole thing, all 100 something pages of it. Dude, some of that shit going on at Blizzard was crazy.
Yeah, I heard.
Insane.
I heard about it.
Like, stuff, I can joke around with a lot, but some of that shit made me sick.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
absolutely
I
sick.
heard some bullet points. It was pretty rough. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're a
I'm not sure we
woman,
wanna
if you're a
talk about
woman, you
that
don't
on
want to
here.
work at Blizzard. But
Yeah,
okay,
no.
well, I think apart from the any sort of controversy or allegations, I don't foresee.
I don't think it has a
I
chance
don't-
either way.
I don't think it's going to beat out solely Elden Ring alone, like the Elden Ring DLC. I feel like the Elden Ring DLC is, which we'll get to that in a second,
Yeah.
but I feel like if you take the general consensus of the Elden Ring DLC and Black Myth Wukong, do you see it beating it out?
No.
I don't either. So next,
All right. So next, it's a crazy jump, dude.
Balatro.
Balatro. So it has a Metacritic score of 90. We're up 9 points already. The user score isn't changed by much. It's 0.1 less at an 8.2. This one is considered a roguelike card game.
Oh, it's an indie game, too.
It's an indie game, but it's considered roguelike in that there's runs in the game. And I'm going to be fair and say Black Myth Wukong, I have not played it. I've seen gameplay. I've seen what people seen or said about it. Same thing for Balatro. I didn't even know that this was a game.
dude, I didn't know it existed until
I
2
didn't
weeks
until
ago.
we
I'm
started
gonna be
researching
honest.
for this. Yeah, and I was like,
I've talked to people who've played it, and they say it's solitaire meets poker, almost.
okay.
And again, that's not a game I'd be adverse to try, because, like, it's a card game. It's not. But
Yeah.
at the same time, the Game Awards kind of have a history of having their AAA games for Game of the Year, and they're like, oh shit, we need to find an indie one
Yeah,
to
shoveling
put
in an
there.
indie one. Yeah.
Yeah, and if there was an indie one that was going to go in there, I can see why. I'll tell you what, Ryan, look up the indie games, because they have a thing that
They have a whole section
best
for it?
indie game.
Yeah, okay, let's get to that next though. Let's
Okay, yeah.
stay to the game of the year though. But Balatro, yeah, I don't have too much of an opinion on it. I haven't played it, so I'd be surprised if they let, just how kind of like the industry is, if they let a indie card game beat out like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah.
I mean-
Especially too whenever, like you said, there's a lot of like I feel like industry coalition that kind of makes these decisions.
Yeah.
So when you have a studio that probably, like Square Enix, that probably spent like millions of dollars making Rebirth, I don't think they're gonna.
I think
And
one
take
person
too
made
heavy.
that game too.
And we can
Balatro.
go ahead and jump on Rebirth. That's going to be the
Is it
next
next?
one. Yeah.
Okay.
So that one has a Metascore of 92 and then a user score of 9.0. So we're kind of getting up into the higher.
That game
we're
took
above
me
9.
100 hours
Banger.
to beat. It is very, very good. I don't think it's quite as good as the first.
Really,
I think
I've heard people say that they like Rebirth better.
the story
I
is
haven't played
definitely
Rebirth.
better.
I played Remake though.
You're
I
still
th-
working on Remake.
I think
right?
the
yeah,
problem
yeah, I'm at the very end of Remake.
the problem with Rebirth that I had, that I've only talked to very few people who felt the same way, is it relies so heavily on those typical JRPGs. Go here. Oh, you need this thing to make this work. Oh, crap. We need 2 other things to make that one thing work. By the time I hit 85 hours, I was just praying that the game
Yeah,
was gonna
begging
end.
for it to end. Yeah,
I wasn't enjoying it.
but I feel like that was kind of
anymore.
like a little bit of the same thing in like the remake, especially with the side quests. Like the side quests in
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first one, feel completely pointless to me.
Oh, yeah,
like they
and-
add nothing.
and-
They're not substantive. I can't say that word.
substantial.
Yeah, they're not substantial. I don't feel like they add to like any sort of like story, character development. They're really just filler. They're straight up like blatant filler.
In Rebirth,
So you're saying like the main,
Yes, the main
story,
story.
is a lot of that? Because
yeah,
the main story in Remake is kind of like I don't want to say bloat because it's not bad,
Yeah.
but it's like they do bloat stuff out, but
if you think
not necessarily
if you think
sometimes
that
in a
is
bad way.
bloat, you're gonna run into real
Yeah,
bloat for Rebirth.
that's my biggest thing with Remake because I love Remake, but I am just kind of like, okay, this is leaning on like a little bit too bloaty.
There were several parts of that game where I was just like, why? Why are we
Yeah.
doing this right now?
And I know it must be bad if that's coming from you, because like,
Yeah, because I'll spend 300 hours to beat a game like
Yeah.
that if I have to.
Because once you get started, you want to see it
Yeah,
through.
it took me 120 hours to platinum Persona 5 Royal, and by the time I finished it, I thought I'd maybe spent 50.
yeah.
I was just so engrossed in it.
So would you
Like-
say for Rebirth,
I think Rebirth has
do you think it's the best thing you've played this year? This came out this year.
I wasn't prepared for that question because I don't know all the games I've played.
Yeah,
came out.
that's fine. That's fine. But
It's up
it's
there.
up there. It's up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what else is?
Are we talking about just Game of the
I
Year
guess
nominees
in
or just in
future,
general?
would
I
games?
you
think,
would you
we can
replay
talk
it,
about it
like-
after we finish the. Yeah.
Yeah. you would,
I mean,
yeah.
it'll take me years to
Yeah.
want to replay
I'm just
it.
waiting for it to come on
but-
PC. Like I'm down to play it. I just need it to come on PC. I just
Yeah.
don't know when that'll be. I also want to play 16. I just realized 16 was on is on
Yeah,
PC.
you didn't believe me.
Yeah,
I was like, it's on PC.
yeah. I was
dude.
in the call. I'm like, dude, I cannot wait for Rebirth and 16 to come on PC. And Madison was like, it's on PC right now. I'm like, no, it's not, because I didn't see anything about that. I saw nobody talk
It's a
about
very
that.
quiet release.
Yeah, it was like $30 too during the Steam sale. So I definitely want to play 16.
P3R was $18 for a new copy at GameStop. For Black
Really?
Friday.
That's
that was a
pretty
game that
cheap.
just came out $40 at launch.
Yeah, well, I
No,
thought it
I
was.
thought it was
I
more
thought,
than
yeah, it was,
40.
it was
Was it
full
40? It was
price.
more than
It was
40?
it's full price.
I thought it was
I thought,
$69.
yeah, I thought it was
Okay,
70
well, I'm
bucks.
going to
It's
say if
70
it
bucks.
was 69, GameStop's going ham.
Yeah,
on
no,
their
it was
stuff
it's
now.
70, and then they had it on sale for like $40.
I'm sorry, I keep
I've been
sidetracking
in
us,
a-
dude.
MSRP is $69.99.
That's wild that it was 18. Because I went in there and I was like, oh, I'm going to get this. It was sold out in their entire system. Like, he looked it up. He's like, oh, I can ship it
Well,
to
that
you.
yeah, that's
Nope,
probably
it's
why,
gone.
because it was $18.
Like, that was their number one deal.
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of keep this conversation going then.
I think Final Fantasy, to me, has the third best chance of winning.
The third best chance.
The third best.
All right,
We'll
so,
get into it.
So next one, we have Astrobot. I feel like this is going to be one of your top three.
If there's one to win, I'd want it to be Astrobot. From
Okay.
just the stuff I've seen
So
and
the-
watch people play.
The Metascore on it is 94. And it also has the Metacritic Must Play Award. And then for the user score, it's a 9.2.
Dude, I want Astrobot to win solely because I feel like it's the first in like I don't even know, like at least a decade, if not two, like mainstream like a AAA 3D platformer.
Yep.
That's a dead genre.
I think, obviously, I would have played it regardless because I don't know if they can see this. I'm wearing PlayStation socks, so I'm a simp.
Bro.
When I started hearing people compare it to Super Mario Galaxy, I was like, well, dang, it must be pretty good if people are comparing it to that because that's like
Banger.
top 5 games for some people on there.
Yeah.
I can't think of the last 3D platform that came out like you were talking about. That's a mainline
Other
title.
than Mario.
Other
yeah.
than Mario. Other
Yeah.
than like,
Well,
Switch titles.
It Takes Two, I don't know if I'd consider it I think I would.
A mainline
what-
title?
No, that's not a mainline. It's an indie, but
yeah.
it sold. What were the numbers on it last night?
Even if it's an indie that does big numbers, I'm
It
like,
sold 20 million copies.
so yeah, that's a lot.
It made
yeah.
$800 million, and that's they got published by EA, which I think helped them
That helped a
tremendously.
lot, too.
It
Well,
also
yeah,
won
then-
Game of the Year
Well,
in
then, yeah, yeah,
2021,
yeah.
and I have never played it.
What was it?
It Takes Two. It's the studio Hazelight that made A Way Out. It's like 2-player games. You have to have someone else to play it, and you have to do stuff together. So I might be trying to flip a switch and jump at the same time as the other person.
Oh yeah, I think I know what you're
And
talking
dude,
about. Yeah.
I've never played that game, and I'm having so much fun with it. Like, it's so creative with some of the stuff you're having to do, and the story's good. So I
Yeah,
like it
but
a
that's the
lot.
thing. You can like count on your hands how many 3D platformers
Yeah.
like that have been successful, like really successful that have came out. I mean,
It's-
there's some under indie ones that aren't like super big, but
Yeah.
as far as like because I mean, Astrobot sold insanely well, didn't it?
Yeah, so
that's
in the
a
first 4
ridiculous-
weeks, it had 1.5 million sales already.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So 1
for a
month in.
3D
It's
platformer.
nothing compared to Spark and Zero, dude.
I guess well, Ratchet and Clank I guess would be a 3D platformer.
Oh,
That
I
came out a
love
few years
Rift
ago.
That's true. I forgot
Yeah.
about that series.
It came out like last year, I think.
Rift Apart.
Yeah, I
Came
mean,
out-
apart
it-
from
that was launch. With
Oh,
PS5.
yeah, that
It
was launch.
20
Yeah,
It just
you're right, you're right,
recently
you're right.
came to PC. That's what it was.
oh, okay, that's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking about.
That-
yeah.
So
that
it
game
can't
is
even
great.
consider a new title, like newer.
I'll
Yeah,
platinum that
yeah.
game.
It's still something that we don't see. Like, I mean, when you go back to the '90s, it was like every release was a
Yeah.
3D
It
was a
platformer.
platformer, yeah.
yeah, it's something you don't really see anymore. So, like, I kind of like that's probably a bad thing to base it on, but I'd want to see Astrobot win solely because of that. Because I feel like they're doing something not new, but like they're bringing something back that
What's next on?
isn't really there.
So next, I can finally have an opinion on this. Well, okay,
Metaphor.
before we get to Metaphor, Astrobot's in the top 3. Then is that what you would say?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right, so here we go. This is the second to last Game of the Year nominee. We have Metaphor ReFantazio with a Metascore of 94. It also has a Metacritic Must Play award, and then the user score is 8.8. So it's kind of crazy to me that the user score is 8.8 because, dude, again, I'm biased, dude. I want this game to win so bad. I love Atlas games. the lore behind SMT, the lore behind the Persona series, and the fact that we have this would be considered a new IP, right?
Yeah, it is.
So, not that I want a sequel on this. I think this is good as a standalone. Dude, like I said, I put 50 hours in this game. I think I just now hit the halfway point, and it's still going as strong as it was when I started.
I can't wait for you to play Persona 5.
So, I feel like the Persona games in particular, and even this one, and maybe even SMT. I have not played SMT 5 Vengeance.
Me neither.
But I do know that usually there's a social commentary. So with I know with P5, I have not played P5 yet, but I know P5 was focused on the
Social links.
I won't say social links. The people that society thinks are bad, them rebelling and actually being the good guys.
Each one has an overall like
theme.
Yeah.
With P4 Golden, and that's what I absolutely love, dude. I can't wait till we get a remake on that one. With P4, I think what I get from it, I know it has its own specific theme it focuses on. What I get from it is it's a more so focused on the social links more than any of the other Persona games, in my opinion.
You saying P4 or P5 is?
P4.
Okay.
Because with that, I feel like it's a very close-knit group. The friendships feel real. It feels like if you were actually doing something with your friends. That's how natural.
Well, let me stop you right there. In P4 Golden, can you date a hot goth mommy doctor?
Oh my gosh. No, Madison, you can't.
Audience, you decide.
I hate that. I hate that you had to mention that. And then, so Metaphor's themes behind that, it talks about equality. You have a bunch of different races in the game. Some races are considered preferable over other races. And the race that you were in the game, in Elda, I guess they must be very rare because there's a lot of hate and discrimination against them. And so it's just basically about becoming king to kind of get rid of these
to end racism.
Yeah.
I'm going to end racism.
Dude, I had no idea what the plot is in Metaphor until you just explained that to me now. That's crazy.
So while it's super simple, it sounds super simple, the way that they approach it, I think is very, very interesting. And it shows different approaches that people take to dealing with these social issues in the world. So, for instance, you have this one character named Katharina. She's I guess she's a bunny girl. That race they're called the Paripus.
Did you just say bunny girl?
Yeah, they're all bunny. They're all like rabbit people. And she's a candidate to become king or queen, I guess. And her whole thing is about basically Robin Hood. She's going to take from the rich, give to the poor. Mm-hmm. But then it goes into the extremism. Communism. It goes into the extremism of like, okay, well, somebody's always going to be on top. Somebody's always going to have more than somebody else. Yeah. So it kind of creates a vicious cycle. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you have another person who just focuses on looks. Another candidate that just focuses on looks. So you have a bunch of social commentary on just all the ways these people try to solve equality, or even what's the other word that?
I guess they're different like takes on it, you know.
Yeah, a bunch of different takes, and it shows how you can take any take in the wrong way if you go too far, if you're too extreme with it.
Yeah.
So I love the game. I love the combat. It uses SMT 5's I forgot what the system's called. Like, it uses their combat system.
That's what I was just about to ask.
It's still turn-based, right?
It's still turn-based.
How much is it different from Persona, though? Like,
yeah, that's what I was about to ask. I've heard that it's kind of like a combination of P5's like story drivenness and then SMT5's
combat.
Yeah.
I have to look up what the actual system's called, but I feel like P5 and P4, they had a very similar combat system where if you hit an enemy with a weakness, you have an extra turn. It's pretty similar, but it goes into like a half turn. So in that half turn, you have to either attack or you can skip the turn. But there are times where if you make the wrong choice, you kind of waste that half turn that you use. So it's fun in that sense. And I think it takes from P5's where you can attack and stun in the overworld. Yeah. That's the thing, right?
In the overworld?
Yeah.
Like you just attack people on the street?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. So no, it totally revamps that then. I thought it had at least a stun mechanic.
There's no combat.
I think he's
when
meaning like stunning like the enemies before you like start the battle with them is what he's talking
can't-
about
you
in the
can't-
overworld.
Oh yeah, no, you can sneak up on enemies.
Oh, but that's it.
You can sneak up on them, and you take their mask off to reveal their persona, and then a lot of times, yeah, if you do that, you can get a turn.
Okay, so no, it's way different then.
He's saying like you can literally stun them to avoid battling them entirely.
You attack over in the overworld, and you can go ahead and start the turn-based combat if you're within like 3 levels.
You have to be a high enough level to do that, to kill them instantly.
You can do that at P5?
Yeah.
Oh,
You just run and press it and it kills them.
Okay, so no, yeah, it is the
okay.
same way.
But you have to
Metaphor.
be a pretty decent level to do that,
So-
like at all.
Well, so like question about metaphors. Do you think that it's too derivative of which I know you haven't played P5 or SMT5, have you? But you like know enough about them to say, and you've played the other Persona games. Do you think is it unique in its own regard, or
Yes.
do you think it's very derivative?
I think it's very unique, dude.
Yeah.
Just the whole setting. I'm glad we're finally not playing minors.
Yeah, that's
The
that's
old-
my
playing
one
as
issue
minors,
with
okay.
that's my one issue with P5.
I thought that was going to say your one issue with metaphor.
No, my one issue with Metaphor is that they could have given us some social links and romance, but they didn't.
Well, no, there is social links. There's just no romance. So, long story short, I really want Metaphor to win. I think it really has a good chance.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I feel like it should have a better chance than Rebirth, solely because Rebirth is such a rehash, which it makes sense that it is,
Yeah.
of remake, but I feel like it doesn't necessarily improve, like solidified, like improve on certain things. You know, it's very debatable. Some people may like it more, some people like it less. But, you know, some sequels you can just straight up be like, this is a better game overall. Like, it's pretty unanimous. I feel like it doesn't really have that. So it just almost feels kind of like an extension of what we already got with kind of some maybe slightly better points and then also some slightly weaker points. Is it open world?
Rebirth?
Yeah, at all?
It's way
At
more
any
open world
point?
than the first one.
It is? Okay.
Because you can go back to areas that you've been to do all the side stuff.
Okay, yeah.
I think Metaphor is probably a better game, but I saw a much larger reaction from the industry as a whole with Rebirth than
Yeah,
I did with Metaphor.
I agree.
And I think people need to realize just because a game wins Game of the Year doesn't mean it was better than every
Yeah,
other.
yeah, of course. We can have our separate two different opinions. What we think is Game of the Year and what we think would win Game of the Year.
Personally, I think Metaphor would be under Rebirth with its chances.
Yeah,
I think Rebirth has a
think
better
for
chance.
what they would choose, yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree. I could see them choosing Rebirth over Metaphor, but honestly, you never know.
I think it would be close.
I think
never
that's
know.
fair, but I'm going to keep my bias.
I mean, it's a good
I can
bias
see
to
Metaphor
have.
winning, though. I can see
Yeah,
them giving Metaphor the award, too.
It's a
so
possibility.
I can definitely see it.
What was next? The DLC?
So, next and top of the list as far as scores go.
This makes me so mad.
Okay, when I say top of the list, I'm talking about Metacritic score. So, the Metacritic score is a 94.
Wait a second.
Hold on.
Go
What-
back to Astrobot. 'Cause
what
I
is
think
it?
Astrobot had a 94 and a high. Yeah, that's the highest rated game of this year.
Okay.
Was Astrobot.
Well, they may all be
Well,
tied.
all of them 94.
Well, it's combining. Like you have to combine both. So Metaphor has a 94 and an 8.1. And
You're
then
saying it has
Astrobot-
the best like
has-
main and user
Astrobot
score.
has a
Okay,
9
so
point-
Astrobot
yeah.
would be on top then.
They're all basically around the same era. So
Yeah.
Elden Ring DLC is what?
Yeah, so
Okay.
8.1.
so 8.1 user score, which is pretty low.
Can I talk about this just real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why it bugs me? I think doing this is really setting a bad precedent.
I agree.
And I think there's also a real double standard. I don't know if any of y'all played Cyberpunk. That it was a horrible launch.
Yes, I
and,
do remember that.
I only played it at launch.
I played it a little bit after launch when
that's
they'd
the
made a
other
lot of
worst experience.
fixes. And I platinumed it at that point. 100% I did everything. Took me like 80 hours. And then Phantom Liberty came out. And I was just like, oh, it's just a DLC. No. It's a completely different game than the entire first game was that was already fixed. They redid the skill points. They redid the way you level up. They added stuff to the story. They added 5 new endings. The entire DLC story integrates completely with the main story too. So it adds a new area of the game. It changed it's version 2.0. It's literally 2.0. And my thing is, I rarely see a game make it far enough to hit version 2.0. It's always 1.768, 1.88 something. Usually stops at 1.9. If 2.0 happens, it's revamped. And if we can't consider a game like that for Game of the Year or awards like that, I think it was up for an award, but I don't.
So
think
you're
it
saying
was,
why is Elden Ring DLC getting that?
Well, I can
praise,
tell you
but
why. It's because it's
Phantom
Elden
Liberty
Ring.
isn't. Well, okay, I feel like but I feel like Cyberpunk kind of got like
Oh yeah,
soiled a
absolutely.
little bit solely for the launch.
It got nominated for a lot though. Phantom Liberty got nominated for a lot last year.
Was it nominated for Game of the
No,
Year?
but it
overall?
was nominated
Okay.
for awards, which also that was when people realized, oh, I guess that qualifies. And
But I
they
guess
specified the rules.
separating it from Phantom Liberty though, do you think that the Elden Ring DLC deserves to be nominated as Game of the Year,
No.
given that it is like 50 hours worth of gameplay?
So let me say,
Go ahead.
as somebody who has actually played the DLC, I enjoyed it a lot. I put about like 40, 50 hours into it. Very entertaining, very fun. Definitely more Elden Ring. It gives you the same experience that we had with Elden Ring.
I don't think it changes enough.
It doesn't give anything more to that in my opinion.
But at the same time, so does Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and that's in here. So, I mean, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you can look at gameplay, like, if you've never too much played either of them to, like, recognize, like, areas or maybe a character that you know is in Rebirth, they look the same. I mean, it's pretty much the exact same game. It's borderline DLC.
I think the
like,
problem. Well, yeah, but it's also 100 hours compared to 40, 50.
Which I mean,
that's probably
still a
doing
good
everything,
amount,
though. Like, it's probably,
I did
like,
platinum it, and it took me
Really?
over 90 to beat. Yeah, I did some side
But
stuff.
the thing is,
Still, though, I mean, like, Metaphor is going to be like 100. I doubt Astrobot
I
is.
think-
Astrobot's probably like 10, right? Like 15.
gosh.
Yeah,
So, I
probably
mean, as long as it's like a lengthy enough, like, time.
I think that because it was made as a DLC and because it was advertised as a DLC, that alone shouldn't. Because it's not its own release. Because now I think if a studio releases a DLC for a game and it's long enough, then Game of the Year, even though we were just nominated last year.
And that's what you're talking about setting a bad precedent.
Yeah,
I get that.
I can see it
it
becoming
doesn't
an
bother me as
issue,
much,
but
but
I don't think with Elden Ring DLC it is necessarily an issue.
I don't think it's an issue unless it wins.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think it's
if
gonna
it
win.
wins, I think that's crazy.
I
if it
think
wins.
Elden Ring's number one contender for sure.
I feel like
um,
it has a high running, but
The thing that bothers me more so is that Elden Ring already won Game of the Year in
Mm-hmm.
2022. So it's like it's more of the same.
It would win.
But like, let me ask you this: let's say that they because I mean, there's been sequels like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that literally just inherit the same engine as its predecessor. So let's say everything about the Elden Ring DLC released as a standalone title called Elden Ring, whatever the title is for the
then
DLC.
I don't think it'd be as
forget
bad. I think it
So
really is
keep
simply
everything
about
exactly
release.
the same, just listed as its own game, and you would have a different opinion on it.
I think it's kind of like Spider-Man got nominated for Game of the Year, and if Spider-Man Miles Morales had gotten nominated for Game of the Year, I wouldn't have had an issue because it would have been a standalone title. I think simply because they knew from the start this was DLC, and it's DLC. It's not its own release, and I think that alone. I think not because of Elden Ring, I think because now any DLC, if it's large enough, is going to be eligible, and I just think that's a bad idea.
I kind of agree.
Like,
that
imagine Far Cry 7 comes out and it knocks it out of the park. It's the first Far Cry to do ridiculously well, and they release a DLC a couple years later that's also amazing and top of the line. I don't care how good it is. I don't think it should be.
But I mean, if everybody likes it more than the actual standalone games that came out, and it's content-wise long enough, I don't know. I agree with you. I just don't know why I agree with you, but I do agree
think
with you.
It only sets a horrible precedent if it wins, because if it wins, every other person is gonna know in game development. Oh, well, we just have to.
I mean, does it
make
add
the DLC
any?
enough.
Is there any like? Because I haven't played it. Is there anything like?
New mechanics.
Yeah. Does it add any new mechanics,
So honestly,
or is it literally just more Elden Ring?
there's like a couple different weapon types, which I loved the idea initially when this DLC was announced and they started talking about the details of it. The sucky thing is, like with the Smith script weapons, there's only like one of each weapon. It's like, what's even the point of calling it a new weapon type if it's just a single weapon? That's the one thing that bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
I saw people complaining about the sap you have to collect or something.
Well,
too.
I don't think that's an issue because I think that helps with balancing. What he's talking about is that there's Was it sap?
It was something like
There
that.
there were two items that would increase your spirit ash power and then your actual combat power and health, just to help balance it. So no matter what time you enter into the DLC, it would still feel like playing a fresh. It almost did feel like playing a fresh game.
Yeah. DLC is always a weird thing for me, like how it integrates within a game, whether it's like supposed to be at the very end, whether you can start on any time. Like, Skyrim DLC, when you start playing it, you start getting those quests like at the beginning of the game.
Once you hit
But
level,
I mean,
like,
Skyrim scales though, so that really doesn't matter.
I think DLC is absolutely, for the most part, I think the Skyrim DLCs were probably done at launch.
Yeah,
with
yeah. So
development.
let me
And
ask
they
you
waited
this.
to release them because they could make more money.
Yeah. So let me ask you this though: if the Elden Ring DLC is like the first, and I'm not saying it is or isn't, I'm just saying like a hypothetical. Let's say that Elden Ring DLC is like the first, because I've honestly never really played a DLC that I loved. To be honest, I can't think of one. I don't think any of the Skyrim DLC is that great.
Serana?
I don't think any of the Skyrim
gosh.
DLC is that great.
It's because you're a simp, man.
No,
But,
it's
like,
not.
okay,
Okay,
compare
y'all
it-
gonna get some flack with Nolan for saying that now.
Compare it to the main game though. It doesn't like it's literally a watered down like addition to the main game.
I love
without the
Dragonborn too,
focus
though.
of the main game.
Not liking Hearthfire, I get, because it was just build house.
I mean, it's
have
just
kids.
more Skyrim, but it's just it feels watered down to me. But like,
God
if
damn.
Elden Ring is the first one to set that precedent of like what DLC really can be to
Yeah.
like bring more life into a game, then maybe that's a good precedent to set, because it tells people, hey, like, quit half-assing DLC. Quit just like holding back like 2 hours of like extra content and then releasing it a few months later. Actually build out something new, because Elden Ring could have done that too. Let's be honest.
I
Elden
think
Ring,
maybe finish your game before it's released.
but I mean, I
and
think
you won't
Elden Ring
have
was
to-
a finished
Elden
product.
Ring was working on
Yeah,
the
that's what I'm
DLC
saying.
after the fact,
Elden
and I
Ring-
also think that's what helps it here, is that I think they knew from the get go they were going to do DLC, but it took a long time.
So it did take a long time, but I think it's because of how lengthy it was.
Yeah,
The other issue that people had with it was the fact that it was $40.
it also added incest.
But it's
to the
50
story.
hours. Like, I don't get people's like issue with that though.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think if the content is good, I didn't mind paying it.
I will
No,
say
I'm
all
the
my friends that loved Elden Ring didn't finish the DLC. Have you finished it?
Dude,
I
I
got
remember
to the very end.
there was a
but
big
that fight is
issue.
just-
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I
There
don't
was
know
a big
anybody that's
issue of
finished it.
people who played it religiously and said it was too hard. Like, it was actually
Yeah.
difficult.
I've heard a lot of people that I know that, I mean, like 100%ed
Yeah.
mainline Elden Ring, like not
And-
finishing the DLC either because they just kind of got like off
and I
of it
think
or
that
difficulty.
it's not sapped. That changed the game too. Like, you had to get that stuff to be able to beat that DLC,
Not
right?
necessarily. The people who really knew how to play Souls games, you didn't have to have it. It was just like quality of
Yeah.
life.
I don't know. I don't think it's too much of a problem that it got nominated just because it is. If it was like if it was bad, like just we could straight up say like this is just watered down Elden
Yeah.
Ring, then I would agree. But
I stand by my goth vampire.
I don't think it should
mommy,
win.
Sarana Valkahar.
I don't think it should win.
I think it's gonna win.
I think
I
it has
don't
a good chance of winning.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go back down the line this way. We'll start with you, Madison. 1, 2, and 3
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
I think Elden Ring.
as one.
What you think is gonna win?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Elden Ring has the best chance.
Okay.
So say what you think will win, and then say your top three as far as what
Okay,
you
I
would
think
want
Elden Ring's gonna win. My top 3.
that you want.
I can say
to
what I
win.
want to win is Astrobot.
Yeah.
I think in order of chances, I think it's number 1 Elden Ring, number 2 Astrobot, number 3 Rebirth.
Dang.
That's
No freaking-
chances.
Yeah.
So it
I
as far
think
as
in
which,
order of having the best chance, there's Elden Ring, Astrobot, Rebirth, and I think Metaphor's right under Rebirth for me.
yeah.
So
chances.
for me, what I want to win is Metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
What I think has the best chance of winning, Metaphor. Then for 2,
You gotta be realistic here, man.
no, that is realistic. 2,
I think Metaphor has a good chance.
I
of
think it
winning.
has a good chance, but I don't think it has a better chance than
Did Persona
Rebirth.
5
no,
No.
win?
What won that year?
Which year? What year was
Persona
that?
5,
What year was that?
2016.
2016
That game is
was
that old. Holy crap.
Overwatch 2.
No,
Overwatch,
Overwatch 2 did not come out in 2016.
wait,
Overwatch
Overwatch.
won
Sorry,
Game
sorry.
of the Year.
Oh, okay.
The Game of the Year is a fraud.
Yeah.
Overwatch won that.
I feel like Persona should have definitely taken that. I don't know. I mean, I'm not mad that Overwatch won though.
Anyways,
But
2, I'll give to Astrobot, and then 3, I'll say Rebirth.
Okay. I think I want.
Just be honest
I'm
with
gonna have
yourself,
to edit out
Tristan.
the silence.
Just be
Well,
honest
see,
with
I haven't
yourself.
played like most of these, so it's hard
Well,
for
I mean,
me to
just
have
look at
an
it from
opinion.
the
But,
industry's looking at these.
what I think's gonna win is going to be. I think Elden Ring DLC has the highest chance.
Really?
I think Rebirth has the second highest. And I think. So Elden Ring DLC, Rebirth, Metaphor. I think is the order that I
Yeah.
think is going to win. I don't foresee them giving it to Astrobot. I'd be kind of shocked if they did.
I hope they do.
But I'll go with. I'm gonna go with Metaphor. I think I want Metaphor to win. Actually, now that I
Sorry,
think
it's
about it,
not
I feel
because
like
I
it's
hated
the
it or
most. I
anything.
feel like it's the most complete experience. Either that or Astrobot.
I think
I
other
want
than
either
Astrobot,
Metaphor.
it's the most unique game.
Yeah,
on here.
I think Astrobot or Metaphor are the two. They're kind of tied for me that I would want to see win. But do I foresee either of them winning over Rebirth or the Elden Ring DLC? Not really. But I hope they do.